Yosemite.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words.
Mike Pounds.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid.
Anonymous, really anonymous.
I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words.
God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We got a great one for you today on this Thursday afternoon. Fantastic show, actually. We're going to talk about, of course, some more Trump tapes. So those are the Bob Woodward tapes of Donald Trump, and I'm going to lay into Bob Woodward a little bit as well on that one, but not to give away too much. I'm going to give it the usual amount of, attention that it deserves. Then, we're also going to talk about more tapes, right? Tom Tillis telling an uninsured cancer survivor, not my problem. We also have Trump going after Fox News, as usual, and we have a whistleblower complaint as well against Trump's cabinet. Specifically at the Department of Homeland Security. So that's really interesting. It's really telling. We'll talk about that as well. I know some of you hopefully had seen the interview with Cenk. I guess it was less an interview and just more of like a show. He wasn't on the main show yesterday, so I figured we'd talk about some of the Trump tapes, which turned out to be a really good decision because I had a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody. With that, let's see. Bread and Roses, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. Who else said something about that? Well, thank you to those who watched and enjoyed that. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out at the end of the show. It was actually a really, really great, get together, crossover event of the century. And like I said, I had a lot of fun. And he did as well. So it was definitely something I want to do in the future, as well as get together with other progressive hosts too, as I've actually been doing. Now, some of you might have been confused, like the name, right? Here's the thing, episode 5. I've actually been doing those more of like a podcast, so we hadn't been putting them up on YouTube. But if you go to our Spreaker, and there's a link in the description basically it links to my Spreaker. You can go and listen to the prior episodes. We've got Michael Brooks, we've got Michael Figueredo from the Humanist Report, we've got Farron Cousins and Benjamin Dixon, all amazing interviews and discussions, just like what we had with Cenk, and it was a lot of fun. So go and listen to those, download those, and I promise I want to do more of those. Let's do it. But as far as today's show, let's jump into it. And of course, before we do, obviously like and share the stream. Very, very helpful if you do so. Helps us continue to get eyes on our show. It's very, very important. By the way, we're still doing that fundraiser. We're about a quarter of the way there, about 25% the way of getting a new stream computer put together. We've got some. We've already actually got some parts. We've got a case, we got a motherboard, and we got some RAM so far. And we can't quite build a computer out of that, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So if you can help by donating, the link's in the description as well. All right. That said, let's go into the first one, Trump tapes. All right. President Donald Trump feels no responsibility to understand the pain of black Americans. Now, he admitted this during an interview with journalist Bob Woodward back in June 2019. June 19th, 2020. So this was, of course, during the George Floyd protests. This was after Floyd was, of course, killed by a police officer who kneeled on his neck for about 8-9 minutes. And so now President Trump is going to get asked by Woodward, about like, hey, do you like not understand, do you understand the pain of black Americans? Do you think that maybe you've been a little bit privileged? In fact, I just want to play that question and his answer for you.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we share one thing in common. We're white, privileged, my father was a lawyer and a judge in Illinois, and we know what your dad did. And do you have any sense that privilege has isolated and put you in a cave to a certain extent, as it put me and I think lots of white privileged people in a cave, and that we have to work our way out of it to understand the anger and the pain particularly black people feel in this country?
No, you really drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? Just listen to you. Wow. No, I don't feel that at all.
Wow. Okay. So, look, that was a pretty good detailed question, right? If anything, Woodward knows how to ask questions. He just doesn't know how to release tapes that he, sat on for quite some time, for months, while people were dying of COVID. But anyway, I guess we'll get to that criticism later. But that was just a taste. All right. No, good question. And his answer is really telling about who he is. You drank the Kool-Aid. So wait, empathy for human beings, to be very human beings, by the way, you were supposed to lead, right? As leader of the country. That is drinking the Kool-Aid. You can't have empathy, right? Can't do it. But hey, nobody's surprised. This is who Donald Trump is. And by extension, conservatives who back him. He's got no empathy and a literal inability to understand the fact that he is very, very privileged. Look, as a working class person, if scraping to get by, right? In this, hyper-capitalist hellscape that we live in, you think, wait a minute, how am I privileged? I have to work my ass off just to be able to feed my family, and I can barely afford, I barely afford my home. I'm working 2-3 jobs. I don't have health insurance. How the hell am I a privileged person, right? Think about it this way. As shitty as we have it, as the working class, right? At least we don't have to deal with institutionalized racism on top of what we already deal with. Again, as a result of capitalism. And so let me give you some examples of that, right? Not being hired for certain jobs because of your name, of how it sounds too ethnic, right? Now you might think, wait a minute, does that actually happen? Yep. There were studies that were done where they would send in the exact same resume with the exact same qualifications. Only one name would be like Bob Smith, and the other name would be like Jamal or, DeAndre, right? They would send those in, and the ones that had normal names, right? White-sounding names, what I mean, those would be accepted far more often, whereas the ones with ethnic names, black names, would be rejected. And that's it. That's what happens. And so that's the kind of institutionalized racism that I'm talking about. Not only that, but you have the issue with over-policing in black neighborhoods, right? These black neighborhoods are impoverished due to, of course, things like redlining, white flight, the effects of segregation, for example. And then you end up having, of course, poverty going hand in hand with higher crime going hand in hand with police being, and because it kind of makes sense, right? If you have an area with higher crime, police are going to direct more resources to that area. And in turn, they're going to find more crime because now there's more police there, right? And then you get this cycle of where, well, there's more crime there, obviously, in these black areas, so we need to over-police them, right? To keep sending more and more resources, when in reality, the resources these communities need are, jobs, education, because again, poverty is kind of at the root of a lot of this crime. And so, you might want to do something about that, right? But as far as privilege is concerned, you want to talk about privilege. Well, Donald Trump is the privileged of the privileged. He was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. He was given millions of dollars in inheritance money from his daddy, as well as his daddy's name and his empire. He wasn't just isolated in the cave. He was raised in a goddamn tower, is what it is. This person is the epitome of privilege. Never worked a goddamn day in his life. So do you honestly believe that he understands the pain of not only working Americans, but black Americans? Are you kidding me? If you think, oh, no, he understands me, you've been duped. And understand that there is no shame in being duped by this guy. You know why? Because he's a professional con artist. This is what he does. This is the only thing that he's good at, is being able to con people out of money. He has conned numerous banks out of money, so much so that they won't lend him money anymore. The only people that'll lend him money now are international crime cartels and Russian oligarchs. And so, nobody believes him. Nobody trusts him as far as business is concerned. That's why he doesn't build hotels anymore. He just licenses his name out because he is a con artist and a buffoon. And so, look, there's a reason, again, that he got away with doing this for so long, because he's actually good at conning people. He's got natural charisma. And look, he's entertaining. Now, that also means, clowns are also kind of entertaining. That doesn't mean we should put them as president. And it also doesn't mean that they understand what it's like to be a working class person or a working class black person. And so this guy's made a career out of lying and swindling people while sitting on a mountain of privilege. So, look, I don't even want to talk about him saying yeah, privilege. No, I'm not privileged at all. No, you swallowed the Kool-Aid. He only sees you as a mark, a useful idiot, if you're a supporter of him. And if you're not useful, he just sees you as an idiot. So, of course, no understanding, no empathy towards the black community. And by the way, that extends to poor white people. Anybody not wealthy is a dumb loser who he can take advantage of for his own personal gain. And speaking of personal gain, right? So Bob Woodward sits on these tapes, right? The other tapes I showed you the other day, right? Where he talked about coronavirus. And he said, whoa, yeah, it's deadly. And it spreads real fast, all the way back in February. And then also admitting, oh yeah, I downplayed it. You downplayed a virus in March, right? That was starting to kill Americans, and continued to downplay it even to this day, admitting that you've done so. And yet Bob Woodward sits on this until he's about to release a book. His book, Rage. Well, you know what? Upon hearing the fact that you sat on this tape, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit of rage myself. Why would you sit on that unless your only goal is to release it so that you can make a buck? Don't you think that this was in the public interest to release it beforehand? To tell the public, hey, whoa, Donald Trump has already admitted this is dangerous, and he's downplaying right now, and he admits that he's downplaying it. maybe you should A, take this fucking seriously, this virus, and B, realize that Donald Trump is a goddamn liar. And not only that, but he's just sociopath that is letting Americans die right now. Tens of thousands of Americans, at least at that point, right? And now, around 200,000 Americans have died from coronavirus. Bob Woodward, you could have done something. Instead, you served yourself. Congratulations. I'm actually less mad at Donald Trump because it's like saying, you know, hey man, well, I can't believe that snake just bit me, right? When I got near it. Yeah, that's what they do. Okay, that's what they do. I can't believe this cheetah just bit off somebody's face. They got too close to. That's what they do. Well, Donald Trump cons people and he lies constantly. That's what he does. It's literally in his nature. But Bob Woodward, you could have done something about it. You could have at least informed us about it. And maybe it wouldn't have made a goddamn difference because nothing sticks to Donald Trump anyway. But maybe it would have. Maybe you could have saved some goddamn lives. Maybe Trump support, definitely Trump supporters wouldn't have listened, but maybe other people would have. Because remember at the beginning, there were a lot of people that were pretty skeptical about COVID-19. That were like, I don't know, we heard this before. This was Ebola, right? This was before it started killing a lot of people in the United States. Now, hey, I took it seriously pretty much from the beginning. And I had people warning me like, hey, don't be too like freaked out about this. It'll be fine. I was like, no, it actually is serious. And we should take it seriously. And we should be cautious about this. Because I do have a pretty bad feeling about it. And, well, now it sucks to be validated and vindicated in this way. But that's kind of right. And so, if anything, Woodward's reporting, would have at least validated the intelligence reports that were saying that this is a problem. Damn right it's a problem. And now it's a little late for that. I would urge no one to buy his book. That's all I have to say on that. No one should buy that damn book. All right. So President Donald Trump continues to be very unhappy with Fox News, especially after polls, of course, have showed him struggling to keep up with Joe Biden in a lot of different places. Add on to that, though, the fact that Fox recently just announced that Chris Wallace would be the moderator of the first debate. Now, I believe that was something that was announced earlier this week or even last week. And so, well, that's got Trump, again, even more angry at the news station that he used to love and still does hate watch, along with CNN and MSNBC. You know he hate watches this because he spends, what else is he going to do during executive time? But now, Vanity Fair's Gabriel Sherman wrote about this, and he reported on Thursday that Chris Wallace, being the first debate moderator, despite, of course, being a Fox host, has made Trump very, very unhappy because the administration knows that he's not going to go easy on Donald Trump. And again, if you're familiar with Chris Wallace, he does actually get kind of tough on Republicans, on Trump. And you got to give him credit, even though he's a conservative himself. Now, one former West Wing official said to him, quote, "Any Republican who thinks Wallace will go easy on Trump is badly mistaken. He's no joke." Look, I've had to give him credit before. I mean, you're right. Now, according to Sherman's sources, the campaign was hoping that the debate commission would choose some more friendly hosts towards Donald Trump, including Brett Baier or Martha McCallum, two anchors who are more Trump-friendly, saying, quote, "Anyone but Wallace." Now, again, they've been pretty tough, right? Pretty tough on Donald Trump. Chris Wallace has. And some of the pro-Trump hosts, even Sandra Smith, has been fairly tough on Republicans as well as Donald Trump. And so, again, it makes sense that they would try to lobby against Chris Wallace. In fact, one of the things that they say, these more pro-Trump hosts, like Sean Hannity, they say, well, we can't choose Wallace because he's a Democrat. What does that have to do with anything? Look, it's funny calling him a Democrat, right? Because what he is he's essentially, and this is sort of a new phrase that I'm going to coin here. He's a Lincoln Project Republican, right? So he's one of those, never Trump, but I'm still pretty conservative. I still agree with him on a lot of issues, but he's rude, and I don't like that. And he's a little too honest about what he thinks about certain things. And so it's kind of good for my career to push back, right? That's a Lincoln Project Republican. And so Chris Wallace is a Lincoln Project Republican. And so now, of course, that also means that, interestingly enough, he's one of those people that are trying to make in good with the Democratic Party, since the Republican Party has proved to be nothing more than, Trump cultists and QAnon fanatics at this point. Okay. And so now that's bad for the Democratic Party because, well, the Lincoln Project is trying to take over the Democratic Party and make it into the new Republican Party, which means we've got two right-wing parties right here. Not good. Not good at all. That said, right? So there's some divisions at Fox News since the death of Roger Ailes. Behind the camera, Hannity and Wallace had actually been at each other's throats. Quote, this is quoting Sherman, several years ago they got in a heated email exchange. At one point, Hannity told Wallace the only reason he had a job in TV was because of his famous father, the legendary 60 Minutes anchor. Trump later tweeted that same attack against Wallace. I wonder where he got it from. Especially since Sean Hannity and Donald Trump tend to talk a lot with each other. But of course, all this has led to increasing attacks against Fox News by the president. Sherman says, perhaps anticipating a grilling by Wallace, Trump is ratcheting up his anger at Fox, lashing out at Fox News polling, showing him losing, claiming it's wrong and bad when every other poll in the country, of course, shows something similar. In a lot of swing states, Joe Biden has a small advantage, and nationally he has about a 12-point advantage. And so, okay. Now, look, I'm a little bit slightly wary of polls, because it's one of those things where you can't really get complacent about these things. Not necessarily saying the polling is wrong, but there is a situation, and it's the nightmare scenario, where, once again, Donald Trump could lose the popular vote, but eke out a win in the Electoral College. Because, again, the Electoral College decides who's president. And so it is a must win. And so you really can't take polling for granted, especially since Donald Trump is caught up in Florida. And we'll really have to see, how the next month or so plays out. Who knows? Trump might have an October surprise. If there's a vaccine, which I hope there is, and it is proven to be effective, that could, of course, alter things as well. And so we'll see. But anyway, Fox News, again, on the receiving end of a lot of anger, especially since Fox News confirmed the Atlantic report that Trump called fallen soldiers losers and suckers. That even led to Trump trying to get a Fox News reporter who reported on it fired. And so there's some growing animosity going on here. And now Trump, as a result, has taken to promoting One America News. So that's like the insane conspiracy theory channel that is even further to the right than Fox News, OANN. And of course, there's a reason. It's because, again, they do 100% pro-Trump propaganda. They don't even pretend to care about facts. And I'm not saying that Fox News cares about facts. It's just they're actually less likely. OANN is even less likely to report on any factual information than Fox News. And I never thought that that would be possible. But it is. But it is. And so there's that. Okay. But again, more to it, right? It's not just Fox News and the Fox hosts that Trump is going after. No. It's Rupert Murdoch. And he's angry at Fox, according to Sherman. Angry at Murdoch for not controlling his network to cover for the president. Now that's interesting. Because, look, Fox News was literally created to cape for Republicans. I mean, that's the original vision by Roger Ailes when he, took over the company, right, and started Fox News. He said, this is going to be the propaganda arm of the Republican Party. And he ruled with an iron fist. And now Roger Ailes is gone, and they're not doing that anymore. There are some people at Fox News, like Chris Wallace, that betray that purpose and allow some journalism to happen. And that's interesting. And that's why, by the way, Hannity and Wallace hate each other. Hannity is a true believer in the original purpose of the network, and he continues to do what the network was originally created for, to be on the side of Trump at this point, who was the president of the United States, who's a Republican. And so it doesn't matter what happens. Sean Hannity will always take the side of Donald Trump, as is intended. But the rest of Fox News isn't 100% on the side of Donald Trump anymore. Again, there are Fox hosts like Sandra Smith and other smaller hosts, as well as Chris Wallace, that are not doing that, that are actually trying to do a little bit of journalism here and there, and ask some tough questions to Republicans. Now, that doesn't mean that Fox News isn't still incredibly biased towards Republicans. Of course he is. Of course it is, right? But I'm saying it's less so without the direction of Roger Ailes. And so there is a shift to where Rupert Murdoch is saying, how do we exist in a post-Trump presidency, in a post-Trump world? And we are going to start working towards that and preparing for that, just in case it happens. But again, you've got the other side, which is Hannity and Jeanine Pirro, that are Trump sycophants. They're now going to clash with the people who are trying to actually do news. And look, again, that doesn't mean that they're not biased or conservative, but they will challenge, Republicans now and then, which has Donald Trump super pissed because he's all about loyalty. Sources who've spoken with Trump told Sherman that Trump thinks Murdoch wants him to lose. Trump definitely thinks Rupert is not in his corner, according to another Republican close to the White House. Murdoch has told friends privately that he thinks Trump will lose in November. While that doesn't necessarily mean he wants Trump to lose, he may be steering the network to do a safer distance from Trump to keep the network from being shut out of a Biden administration. A source told Vanity Fair, quote, "It's really all about business for Rupert." Now, again, you think a businessman like Donald Trump would understand that. Well, it turns out, no, because Donald Trump is a failed businessman, and all he cares about is his ego and his loyalty, and more importantly, to keep his power. And he needs a propaganda network in order to defend him at all costs. And for Fox News, that's not good for their business. It's like, no, we can't openly do that much propaganda. We're still going to do propaganda for Republicans. I mean, again, that's our purpose, right? That's what we do. But we need to still try to appear to be a little bit more fair and balanced, and not just be openly blatant propaganda, which, again, they still are if you're really paying attention to Fox News. But they're trying to make the appearance of not being so open about it. And so, now, again, one source recalled a call where Trump had screamed at Murdoch over the phone when it comes to Fox's numbers. Quote, "They had a humongous blow up. Trump yelled that Fox's coverage is unfair and the polling is fake." And Murdoch, of course, held his ground, saying, no, our polls are pretty accurate, right? Yeah, Imagine that. You've got somebody who says that the polling, well, I mean, in the face of polling that's not favorable, says fake news. Instead of course, strategizing on how to fix it, they attack the messenger and say, it's fake. It's fake. Well, that's who we're dealing with. That's who Donald Trump is. Not a very intelligent person, not a very stable genius, very not stable at all. He's deeply insecure and blames other people for his failures. Everything else but him. It's taking a complete lack of responsibility. But, as I always point out, this is who this is who Donald Trump really is. And so he's going to stop embracing Fox as much and really kind of double down on OANN and other, right-wing propaganda networks who will actually do his bidding. All right. I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We've got more stories here. We got, of course, Tom Tillis, his aide, and the blow-up around that. I've got some choice words for Tom Tillis and the Republicans as well. So come back here for that. And I will be back, like I said, in a minute. Stay right here around the nation.
Island.
Yosemite's tolerated.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Waldorf Nation. Let's see. So, got some stuff to do. First, I want to give a shout out, of course, to patrons, as well as channel members for supporting the show. First, patrons, it's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Vicky D. I want to thank you, Vicky, as well as Tainimi. Thank you. Channel memberships, you can become a channel member, of course, 2 different tiers, $2 and $4. Both go to obviously help the show. Brian Sams and Pound the Pavement. Those are our 2 newest members. Thank you very much for supporting the show. And again, you can become a channel member by hitting the join button below. All right. That said, we've got some super chats here. Not an i9 processor, sorry. I'm actually going for the Ryzen. And so it's a little bit less expensive because already I'm trying to raise $2,500, and it's difficult to do. That's actually a lot of money. So, yeah, I'm looking at getting one of the new Generation 3 series Ryzen processors. Yeah, it's like 16 cores. Massive improvement. Massive improvement over the 4 that I have now. And so, yeah, we're working on a little bit cheaper of a platform, but we can put together a pretty good, pretty badass computer for $2,500. And so if you want to help out, go to our fundraiser in the description below. All right. LWell says, I self-quarantined starting at the end of February. Last week, I was the first person in the grocery shopping in 6 months. I plan to continue to limit my outside exposure through next spring. It's a pretty smart idea. It's actually a really smart idea. And so, you know, I try to limit as much as possible as well, especially now that it's getting towards fall. Fall is supposed to be probably the worst. I don't know what happened with Labor Day, but Labor Day is, I mean, depending on how, you know, people did in the state when it came to wearing masks and social distancing on Labor Day, it could be a super spreader event. And so I'm being especially careful to, you know, not go out in public and needlessly expose myself to the virus. And so I'm glad that you're doing so as well, L. Weird how that turned out, that sentence right there. But anyway, recommend Carrie Holtzman PC channel on YouTube. And some are asking why the i9, or why not the i9, because the i9 is prohibitively expensive. Look, I like Intel processors. I have an i5 in this current one, in my current machine, and in my gaming machine downstairs, my dedicated gaming machine downstairs, I have an i7 4790K processor. Again, pretty good, but it's old. And it needs, I would like to upgrade that as well, but that's with my own money. That's not what I'm raising money for. This is strictly for my work streaming computer. I try to keep both separate. But anyway, it's because, again, I'm using it to bring the show to you guys. All right. So anyway, there's that. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. It's incredibly helpful. All right. That said, let's dive back in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a gamer. You guys didn't know that? Holy crap. How is it that you're in my audience? You don't know that I'm a gamer. And also that, you know, I like to stream video games with my friends. I have an entire dedicated gaming channel. Yes. Yeah, I'm aware about that. Yep. So, all right. Anyway, let's move on. As a result of coronavirus, as well as the economic crisis related to it, millions of Americans have lost their health insurance coverage because, well, they've been furloughed or laid off, or businesses have closed. It's a real mess out there. And so one such person is a woman named Bev Veals. Now, Bev Veals is a 3-time cancer survivor in North Carolina. And she lost her insurance, and she didn't know what to do. So she decided to reach out to state lawmakers to see if they were actually working on doing something to help people that don't have insurance. Again, her husband was furloughed due to the coronavirus pandemic and wanted to know what happened. What would happen to her health insurance? Now, after getting in contact with Tillis's office, Veals ended up recording a phone call with one of his staffers, who basically dismissed the issue. Now, there's a video, but I can't play it due to copyright restrictions, and so I'm just going to read it to you. Quote, "You're saying that if you can't afford it, you don't get to have it, and that includes health care?" Veals asked. The staffer said this, quote, "Yeah, just like if I want to go to the store and buy a new dress shirt. If I can't afford the dress shirt, I don't get to get it." So, wait, that's your answer. Hey, man, it's like a dress shirt. If I can't afford the dress shirt, I don't get it. Okay, but that's not the same as health insurance. And so Veals says this, but healthcare is something people need, especially if they have cancer. The staffer responded, quote, "Well, you got to find a way to get it." She asked in return, "So what do I do in the meantime?" His answer is the most Republican answer ever. "Sounds like something you're going to have to figure out." Oh, you're just going to have to figure out. I mean, what are we? Your representative? We're supposed to represent you? No, we're supposed to. No, we represent the donors, and the donors are health insurance companies, and we don't give a damn about you, whether or not you die, or not. Don't really care. By the way, vote Republican. Seriously though, he just compared healthcare, which you need to live, with a goddamn dress shirt, which you don't need to live, right? I mean, I could live without this shirt, right? Might not look great. Have to wear a different shirt, maybe a cheaper shirt, but I could live, I could survive. But you can't survive without health care. You die without health care. It's like people with who need insulin, right? And I love that there's this supposed feel-good story, right, going around. I don't know. I don't remember who posted. It might have been CNN. Like, a child, cuts down on his insulin use in order to save father money. Like, no, if you cut down on your insulin, you'll die. You need that insulin. There's no reason why it needs to be $300 for one single vial of insulin in this country. You need it to survive. Just like you need health care when you have cancer to survive. But here's the thing. This goes back to the Republican mindset. If you can't afford it, that's tough for you, man. Sorry. Not my problem. Well, okay, well, then what do we pay you for? What do we pay you for? Well, you're supposed to be our representative. I mean, and if you're supposed to represent us, well, then the vast majority of Americans want universal health care. Shouldn't you be working on getting us that? I mean, look, both Medicare for All and a public option are incredibly popular with the American public. What, it's not popular? Insurance companies. or our current system of healthcare. Not as popular. Why? Because it treats healthcare as a commodity, and it shouldn't be. Healthcare is supposed to be something that we all are entitled to have as Americans. It is a human right. Every American should have it. But of course, since we have people like Tom Tillis and the Republican Party and corporate Democrats who like to take big money from health insurance companies to stop things like Medicare for All, that's where we don't have it. And by the way, the same insurance companies, right, that pushed against Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, right? And ran a whole bunch of ads saying, oh my God, look at how terrible this is. This is going to destroy your choice. We should go with Joe Biden and his plan for a public option. Those same companies are now saying, ooh, public option, bad, very bad. It's going to destroy healthcare. No, we should just keep everything basically the same way as it is because we're raking in all sorts of cash. That's what it is. As far as Tillis is concerned, WRAL, who had the exclusive rights to this story, sent Veal's video to Tillis' office, along with a request for an interview. The office responded by saying the staffer who spoke to Veal's was, quote, completely inappropriate, because they were being too honest, and will face immediate disciplinary action. It is very likely that action said, hey, stop being so honest, because you might get taped. Look, he probably got talked to, as I said before, but again, this is who Republicans are. He's got in trouble for being too honest. And that's it. That's really it. This is how they view you and your health care. So I think they can shove their non-apology, right? Veals, by the way, was not happy with this. She said, quote, we need our legislators to listen to us and help us solve this problem because it's not just my problem, not being able to afford health care. It's the problem of hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians. And of course, not just that, but millions of Americans have a similar problem. This pandemic, and I've said this before, has laid bare one of the many issues of our healthcare system that I've talked about for years. It is both dumb and immoral and to tie healthcare to your job. I believe healthcare is a human right, and we're the only developed country in the world that has this kind of barbaric system that we punish our own people. If they lose their job, they lose their healthcare. That's insane. And look, by the way, in this country, if you do have wealth, then we've got the best healthcare in the world. But if you don't have that wealth, you lose your job, well, then you're screwed. You're SOL. That is a totally wrong system. It's a disastrous system. We have the ability, because Medicare for All, again, saves money, saves companies money, corporations save money, they save individuals money. The only ones that lose out here are the health insurance companies. And that's, of course, why they push back against it so hard. Look, Michael Bennet himself, right, was a congressman, briefly ran for president, told the Young Turks, right, that Medicare for All is the Cadillac plan. It's the best plan that you could get. Okay. Well, then why can't we get it? Well, because the insurance companies will lose money. We could do this. We could do Medicare for All and become the envy of the world when it comes to healthcare. Not only would we have the best healthcare in the world, which we already have, if you have the money, but then everyone, every American, would be able to use it. I think that's a wonderful system. But understand that Republicans and conservatives want to keep it the way that it is. Keep it exclusionary. They don't believe that everyone has a right to health care, that there are people that are just more worthy and more deserving than others by virtue of, well, how much money they make. And that's really it. They think that people are worth more simply because they make more money. I think that's absolutely just a disgusting way to look at the world. We are backwards in this country and filled to the brim with institutional corruption. And that's why Veals and millions of people needlessly have to suffer without health care, and why Republicans, who, by the way, enjoy the best government health care that they can get, are out there basically telling you to eat shit. That's what they do. All right. Moving on, one last story for you guys. A new whistleblower complaint from Department of Homeland Security employee Brian Murphy was released on Wednesday, and it provided some rather disturbing allegations of criminal behavior and abuse of authority within the Trump administration, specifically at DHS. Now, look, I know nobody's going to be shocked here that this administration is full of abuse of authority and criminal behavior. It's basically the tagline for this administration is we're all fucking criminals here. But nonetheless, there's some pretty big allegations in this. So why don't we just dive right into it? So now, for one of the allegations is that from Murphy is he said that he was illegally directed to manipulate intelligence assessments in order to support the administration's border agenda. So now, around October 29th of 2018, Murphy was given instruction by other administration officials to ensure that the intelligence assessments he produced for Secretary of State Kirstjen Nielsen supported the policy argument that a large number of people were entering the United States through the southwest border and that these people were dangerous. So now, Murphy declined to censor and manipulate the intelligence information, saying that it was an improper administration of an intelligence program, and stated that to his superior that doing so would be illegal and that he would not do it. So he reported this, and he said, "Look, I'm not going to do it." Simple as that. I'm not just going to alter intelligence reports so that Donald Trump can justify building a border wall. That's not going to happen. So credit where credit is due, right? So now, it wasn't just, again, Kirstjen Nielsen, but the next part deals with her as well. The complaint also says that DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen repeatedly and deliberately had lied to Congress to exaggerate the threat at the border, despite the fact that she did not have the altered intelligence reports to make that claim. Again, she wanted those reports so that she can go to Congress and say, look how dangerous this is. You should approve Donald Trump's border wall, which would, of course, help Donald Trump with his base. And, of course, it's something that Donald Trump wanted. Now, Murphy said that the secretary purposely tried to blur the distinction between known and suspected terrorists and other categories of migrants, basically trying to paint everyone who crosses the border illegally as a known or suspected terrorist to try to make the case that we need that border wall. Now, it misleadingly suggested that the border posed a greater threat of terrorism than it actually does. And again, we hear that, of course, all over Fox News every time they bring up the migrant caravan or anything like that or immigration to the wall. They always say, well, look at the terrorists. They're coming over from Mexico. Or at least they were before COVID-19, according to Fox. In reality, they never did. They were not coming over the border. In reality, if there were any terrorists, they were homegrown and right-wing extremists. And, of course, there's a section on that as well. We'll get to that later. Now, even after Murphy explained the distinctions to Kirstjen Nielsen, she consistently misled Congress about the matter during a congressional hearing back in 2018. Again, the reason, of course, is the facts don't matter. They wanted to push a narrative, and that narrative, of course, started with Donald Trump, and everyone, was given their orders. Try to fit the facts to meet the narrative. Okay, and of course that brings up Ken Cuccinelli, acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security Ken Cuccinelli had allegedly tried to distort intelligence reports he viewed as too favorable to those seeking asylum, claiming that they were concocted by the quote deep state. Now, in December 2019, Mr. Murphy attended a meeting with Cuccinelli, as well as some others, to discuss intelligence reports regarding conditions in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Cuccinelli expressed frustration with the intelligence reports that Murphy produced, and he accused unknown, quote, deep state intelligence analysts of compiling the intelligence information to undermine President Donald Trump's policy objectives with respect to asylum. Now, you guys remember, Donald Trump's policy agenda is to shut out all asylum seekers, to completely shut down the border, 100%, and build a wall. Unless, of course, you come from a very wealthy nation. But if you come from, what is Donald Trump had referred to as quote-unquote shithole country, then obviously he doesn't want you here because you are a loser and you're a terrible person and you're a criminal, a rapist, whatever he said. And he has said a lot of things against migrants, people who are basically trying to, flee war and poverty and disaster in order to try to build a better life for themselves. He didn't like that. He don't like that at all. Notwithstanding, Mr. Murphy's response to that is that the intelligence report's assessments were consistent with past assessments made for several years. Cuccinelli then ordered his superior, as well as Murphy, to identify the names of the deep state individuals who compiled intelligence reports and to either fire or reassign them completely. Oh, the intelligence reports don't fit my narrative and the narrative from my boss, Donald Trump, the guy that I work for? Well, then fire the people making the intelligence, hire people who will literally lie for me in order to fit that narrative. Another issue, by the way, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The complaints also talked about how Secretary of State Chad Wolf had told Murphy to stop reporting on potential election interference from Russia and instead to focus on China and Iran. So, okay, that would appear to also be in Donald Trump's favor, as again, Donald Trump wants to focus on China and Iran. Now, the complaints also, again, talked about how Murphy was told not to discuss threats from white supremacists. Why? Well, because threats from white supremacists would reflect badly on Donald Trump. In fact, higher-ups then preferred that Murphy's team work on, quote, violent left-wing groups like Antifa. So, don't focus on white supremacists. That makes us look bad. Why would white supremacists make you look bad? Huh. Weird. Like, is it because you have things in common with white supremacists? Perhaps? That your administration is very, very friendly towards white supremacists? Again, why would that make you, going after them make you look bad? To whom? To whom? Very interesting. Very interesting. But that's it, right? They said focus on Antifa. Antifa, who's, by the way, killed far less Americans than white supremacist groups. That the majority of violence, domestic terrorism in this country has been perpetrated by right-wing domestic terrorists. Nonetheless, during multiple meetings between the end of May 2020 and July 31st, 2020, Murphy made protected disclosures to Wolf and Cuccinelli regarding abuse of authority and improper administration of an intelligence program with respect to intelligence information on Antifa and anarchist groups operating throughout the United States. On each occasion, Mr. Murphy was instructed by Mr. Wolf and Mr. Cuccinelli to modify intelligence assessments to ensure they matched up with the public comments by President Trump on the subject of Antifa and anarchist groups. Let's see. Mr. Murphy declined to modify any of the intelligence assessments based on political rhetoric and advised both officials that he would only report accurate information as collected by the DHS and INA. So this is all about political correctness. Donald Trump is like, oh, no. We're not going to talk about white supremacists. No, that makes me look bad. I want to talk about Antifa. I want to talk about quote-unquote anarchist groups. Remember, this is happening during the wake of the George Floyd protests, right, that have been going on for months. And so racial justice is at the forefront of the American, consciousness, right, and still is. And that was at a time where the George Floyd protests were actually way more popular than they were now. And so Trump said, well, I'm not interested and talking about white supremacy, especially, when it comes to policing. No. Let's talk about Antifa. Let's talk about rioters. Let's talk about anarchists. And by the way, it was pretty effective in bringing down the support for the Black Lives Matter protests in the intervening months, or I should say in the following months. And so it was a pretty effective tactic. They knew exactly what they were doing. And Cuccinelli was part of that. Cuccinelli and Chad Wolf, at least according to this whistleblower. And so, I mean, it is really fascinating here to see these disclosures. Because, again, here you have the government pushing out propaganda. And in order, again, to fit a narrative. And, again, we call that political correctness. And that's what this is. Again, a president who says, I hate political correctness. We don't like this at all. A whole political party that says we hate political correctness, literally doing political correctness. It's amazing, right? And look, they've got Chad Wolf, who's a political hack, and they've got Ken Cuccinelli, who's also a political hack, that is willing to do this stuff and willing to order to people to break the law. And this culture is dictated by the President of the United States, a president who wants total loyalty and will reject anything that runs counter to his narrative because he doesn't care about facts. And he surrounds himself with people who don't care about facts and who are expected to be completely loyal. That is political correctness. You change intel reports to match what the president is saying for political purposes. It is the very definition of political correctness and exactly what the Nazi Party did in Germany back in the 1930s. This is fascism 101. And I know some of you might roll your eyes. Oh my God, here we go. He's talking about fascism again. But in reality, we are dealing with fascism in this country. There are people who have power right now and are willing to use it to do illegal things to lie to the country to fit a political narrative from the president of the United States. That is fascism. And that exactly is who the Republican Party is. And if you don't see it, it's because you don't want to see it or because you cheer it on. All right. Justin Visual with a comment here saying we need to stop calling them militias and start calling them what they are, domestic terrorists. Yeah. It's true. Fixed App says Democrats are Republicans. It's one corporate war party. There are differences. Yes, they both love war. They both love corporations. But, again, there are differences here on social issues. There are issues. There are differences. The Democrats are not out there calling for militias to use Second Amendment solutions against people who disagree with them. There is fascism in this country. And there are big differences. The Democratic Party is where the Republican Party used to be back in the 1980s. The Republican Party is the Nazi Party from the Weimar Germany. Or at least it's getting there. And so, Tony Izzo says, funny how Trump says he hates PC culture, despite being one of the most thin-skinned bitches imaginable. You're absolutely right. And Bob Mama says, Christo-fascist nationalists. Yeah, that sounds about right as well. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me. Please check out that interview with between me and Cenk Uygur. It was a great interview as well. Thank you for those who send in the super chats. Help us out with our fundraiser. Link in the description as well, or become a channel member or a patron at patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Like and subscribe as well, and like us on Facebook too. We got to take Facebook over, man. Right-wingers have way too much clout there. They reach millions and millions of people. We need to start matching that because we do have the majority of people, and we cannot let them control the narrative on any platform. Look, YouTube has an incredibly strong right-wing presence as well. So we also need to fix that too. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys later.
tighten up my meat.
Whistleblower.
Mike Pounds.
CSM Heights.
Thailand.
I like my meat tight.
Wet ass P word.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.